Hello, everyone, and thanks for taking the time to watch this presentation. My name is Jonathan Brush. I'm the president and CEO of Unbound, and I appreciate you taking the time to watch this because I am very excited and very passionate about this topic. Before we begin, just a little bit of housekeeping. The first, in case you haven't noticed, I'm not in a fancy studio. I'm recording this at home. It is the age of COVID, and I'm under quarantine again for all kinds of various reasons. Happily, COVID has been pretty minimal in terms of health impacts on my family, but certainly has caused some complications in terms of getting out. My house, I live in a 100-year-old farmhouse. We're currently renovating some pieces of it. Honestly, this is about the best angle I can get. It's not very professional, so I apologize ahead of time. To compensate, I did wear jackets. Don't know that I had to wear a jacket for this presentation, but I generally present wearing a jacket. I haven't been able to do that almost all year, except for maybe once. And so I thought I'd do it tonight as a way to bounce on the fact that you get my closet doors in my office instead of some more professional looking background. And I apologize for that. Most of this presentation is going to be slides anyhow, but I thought I'd give you some context of what's going on. The kids these days tell me that authenticity is prized above all other things, and so this is very authentic. Also, it's in my house. I have 6 children and a new puppy, and so I make no claims as to how perfect the background noise will be and what other things might show up in this recording as we go through. And so again, just being authentic with you. Looking forward to doing this presentation. The material that I'm going to present here comes out of a course I teach for Unbound called Navigate. And what I did was I actually just lifted some pieces out of that course and collected them here because I'm so passionate about this information. I really, 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 really want you to hear and learn about this. But there's a lot here. And so I tried to condense it down. I tried to make it all work together. But if you have any questions, I look forward to the live Q&A session we're doing for this conference. But also you can contact me through our website. That's beunbound.us. And if you have additional questions, please feel free to contact me. Like I said, this is something I'm excited about. This is something I think is important. And this is something that I definitely want to share with you. So if you need points of clarification, feel free to ask and follow up with that. So with that, let me see if I can make Zoom work, get this screen share here and put some slides up, and we'll get started. Okay, so I think you should see my screen now. I'll check the recording afterwards and make sure. But like I said, this is a set of principles, a set of material that we take from our Navigate class. And I put this first slide up here, Navigate, to let you know that's the point here. The content I want to present is designed to help people navigate making decisions, and especially young people. Because one of the things that's kind of disconcerting and difficult about being young, especially today, and when I say young, I'm talking about like 16 through 25 in that age range, is that there's a lot happening. And there feels like there's such high stakes that things are happening. And if you're a child, you've grown up, and for the most part, yeah, you've made some decisions, certainly, and you've had some responsibilities, sure, but your decisions have been mostly made for you. I mean, they're kind of been default things. You go to school, we go to high school, graduate from high school, live a certain place, do certain things, interact with certain people. And then all of a sudden you're asked to make these really huge decisions. And the way we set things up in today's world is that those huge decisions, we kind of put a lot of weight on them. We tell people that they are huge decisions and they make a big difference and that it's really, really important for them to make the right ones. I was a director of missions for almost 12 years. I have done stints part-time as a youth and young adult pastor and a junior high pastor. I've been the director of student life for Unbound for a long time. I'm the president and CEO of Unbound now. I've worked with students making big decisions for my entire professional career, and even to some extent when I was in college struggling with these issues myself. And I am convinced that the way we go about this is just wrong. It does not make sense. And then it causes a lot more harm than help. And that's what this presentation is all about. I want to kind of give you a new set of skills, some new ways to think about how to do this. I call this the question asking principle and seeking questions instead of answers. But when I say that, it's important that I let you know that I give you some background on this, because if you don't understand the context of what I'm saying, this can actually be a little bit scary, especially from a Christian point of view. In fact, what happens is that if I'm not careful about setting this up, you'll start to wonder if I'm a closet relativist. and I want you to just know right up front, I am emphatically not a relativist. I'm not a postmodernist. I believe in truth with a capital T, that there is truth that comes in the form of our Savior, Jesus Christ, that there is a God, that there are certain things that are understandable and right and things that are wrong, and there are absolutes. So just want to make that very, very, very clear. But I also want to say that as a fallen, sinful person, I don't think I always completely understand the truth. That doesn't mean there isn't truth. It just means that my understanding of it in this world is often imperfect, which requires me to continually seek it. So when I talk about asking questions and not assuming answers, please don't think for a second that I'm referring in some way to that in a theological or worldview sense. I believe in ultimate truth. I believe in absolutes, but I also believe that the best way to determine those absolutes and the best way to live in light of that absolute truth is to continually be seeking a more perfect understanding of it. So if at any point you get a little worried about that throughout this presentation, refer to this section in this slide and understand what I'm saying and what I'm really trying to convey here. So, okay, now here's the thing. When I talk to people about making big decisions and I talk to young people, that is almost always framed in the terms of career advice, right? In other words, all these big questions gets framed most in the sense that they want to figure out what to do with their life, and that turns out to be a career. If you press into young people, yes, they want relationships, they want to get married, have families, stuff like that, but that feels random, and they're not sure about how to go about that. And maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't, but there's some control over this idea that I can figure out what to do with my life, meaning I know what I get paid for. And then that's why I'm going to college, I'm getting an education to get a better career and all this kind of stuff. And so when I talk to young people and we talk about big decisions, they're always thinking in terms of career. It's either blatantly expressed or it's behind the scenes. And here's my contrarian take on that. I think all career advice is exactly wrong. Now, I know that's a blanket statement, and I'm being a little hyperbolic there on purpose, right? But I just think that typical career advice is all wrong. And so here's the typical career advice. I hear this all the time, drives me absolutely crazy. People will say, follow your passion, do what you love, and you'll never work another day in your life. Have you heard that advice? Perhaps you've given that advice, or perhaps you've received that advice. It's well-meaning. I don't mean to impugn the motives of anybody's giving that, but I find that it's often given by people that don't like what they do for a living. And they feel like they took a wrong turn somewhere back in college, probably, and it put them on the wrong path. And they're now doomed to have a bad career situation for the rest of their life. And to some extent, it's been an excuse. It's a bit of a, I made a bad decision when I was 20 and that's turned out this way. If I made a good decision, it would turn out another way. So here, young person, make a good decision, do something you love, follow your passion. You'll never work another day in your life. I think this is trash. I think this is just garbage. I think this does not work, and it's extremely damaging, because here's what happens when you tell young people that advice. They say, okay, what am I passionate about? And they say, okay, you know what I'm passionate about? I'm passionate about riding my bike. I've been passionate about riding my bike since I got my bike. I like to ride my little bike, and then I love to ride my BMX bike, and I put jumps in the driveway, and I jump that, and I've moved on to mountain bikes, and I now have ridden my mountain bike, and I'm pretty spiffy at riding my mountain bike, and there's such a thing as mountain bike races. And so when you say follow your passion and do work that you love, I know what I'm going to be. I'm going to be a professional mountain bike racer with a Red Bull sponsorship, make spiffy YouTube videos, and make a ton of money. That's what I want to do for a career, which is not bad. And if you are a spiffy mountain bike rider who makes awesome YouTube videos that I probably watch, and you make lots of money of that, that's great. I don't know anybody that does that. And the supply of people who does that in the world is very small. I know lots and lots of people want to do this. I don't know many people who actually can make a living doing this. The other thing is they say, well, okay, do something I love. I love to sing. I've sang in the choir. I sang at church. I do solos. I sing with a group. I love music. And so I'm going to be a professional singer. I'm going to be a professional, insert genre of choice, whatever it is. I'm going to be a professional singer. I'm going to do what I love, and I'll never have to work another day in my life. Okay. I love singers. I love listening to them. If you can make a living doing that, that's fantastic. I'll be happy to encourage you in doing that. I don't know a ton of people who actually do make a living singing. Here's the one I get more than everything else, having worked thousands of college fairs throughout my career and talked to thousands of college students or aspiring college students. And I say, what do you want to do with my life? And they say, you know what I want to do with my life? I want to swim with dolphins. That's not actually what they say. What they say is I want to be a marine biologist. And here's what happens. They get that kind of advice, do what you're passionate about. And they say, you know what? I get A's in science. I'm pretty good at science. So I like science. Well, I want to be a scientist. I don't even know what a scientist is. What does a scientist do? Well, marine biologist, that's a kind of scientist. Well, that sounds cool because I like the beach and like the water. And everybody's around the beach and around the water. They look like they're having an awesome life. As a matter of fact, I also really like dolphins. And what could be cooler than getting paid to live at the beach and swim with dolphins every day? Therefore, I will be a marine biologist. I have heard literally hundreds, perhaps thousands of students tell me that they want to become a marine biologist. I have not met anybody who's graduated to become a marine biologist. Are there marine biologists? Yes. Is this a viable career track? Absolutely. Am I saying you shouldn't be a marine biologist? No, I'm just questioning the fact that when I can be in the middle of Iowa, I have a high proportion of people who have never seen saltwater who want to be marine biologists. I don't think it's because they have a driving passion to be marine biologists. I think they have a driving passion to have a career they think is cool. And they're picking marine biologists and they're picking racing mountain bikes and being professional music stars or whatever else they're doing because they're conflating passion. They think that to be passionate about something, it has to be cool. That, or they think that they just have to walk along and all of a sudden passion lightning will strike them and they know exactly what they're going to be passionate about and do for the rest of their life. I don't find this to be a very accurate reflection of the kind of people I know and the kinds of careers that I know people are passionate about. I find people who are passionate about their work in all kinds of different places. And it's not because they're doing super cool jobs. They do all kinds of different jobs. I find that people are passionate about their work when they're skillful enough in it to really know what they're doing, and consequently they're granted autonomy so they can make decisions about how they do their work. And when they do work that they think makes a difference, when they're experienced enough to know what they do, what the world needs, where those two things cross, and they're able to do that. And if they can do that, make work that makes a difference, that they have some autonomy in, and it pays the bills, I find people really excited about their work in all kinds of careers. But there's a catch. And the catch is this. You have to have the experience and you have to build the skill. And you don't know exactly what that work is until you've gained both the skill and the experience. And the problem with that whole situation is that we don't have a system of helping young people figure out what they want to do in life that teaches them how to do that. Instead, we tell them they have to know the answer. So here's a big paradigm shift coming. I'm really disgusted and frustrated with this answer-based system. Let's just step back for a little bit and sort of consider what's going on here. We're telling a young person at 16, 17, and 18 years of age who's barely experienced anything of the world, just because they're on the short end of the experience spectrum in terms of years lived on the planet, that they now have to make a decision about what they're going to do until they're 60 plus 70 years. And that they have to figure that all out. And they'll do that by taking what? A bunch of little bubble tests that fills it in, tells them they're going to be an audiologist when they grow up, or by shadowing a couple of people for a couple of days and seeing a little tiny sliver of somebody's career. Well, is it any wonder that they pick the same kind of careers to be over and over again? They pick the exciting ones, mountain biking, swimming with dolphins, singing on stage. And they pick the traditional ones. I want to be a doctor because I'm really good at school. I want to be a lawyer because I'm really good at school and don't like science. I want to be a business person, CEO, because I want to make a lot of money, whatever. They pick the things that they think make sense because they don't have enough experience to know what does make sense. In other words, this is an assumed answer paradigm. You have to know the answer to these high stakes questions before you can actually begin to figure things out and get the credentials you need to pursue those things, when in fact you have no experience to guide you to tell you whether those answers actually makes sense. I think this is ridiculous. I think that we should look at something different. Here's the deal. It's questions that move your life. Or you can look at it this way. This is just a model, right? But you can look at it this way. Life is a series of questions to be answered, right? You're constantly having to ask and answer questions as you move through life. With the big questions, how did I get here? What is my purpose in life? What happens to me when I die? And the little questions, what am I going to do next? Where am I going to go to school? What kind of education am I get? All those kinds of things. And it's questions, not answers, that are the key to knowledge. Because here's the problem, right? When you have an answer, you've arrived at an end. And when you arrive at an end, you tend to stop. When you ask a question, you're starting a beginning. And when you're at a beginning, you continue to journey forward. And the quality of your questions determines the quality of your answers. I mean, just think about this in like a big, grand, sort of big worldview thing, right? If you ask the questions, can we clone humans? Then you'll start down a whole scientific path to figure out how to do that. But if you ask, should we clone humans? You get down an entirely different path. Now, what's most important there? The answers that are discovered or the questions that are asked? I think we need to spend a lot more time teaching our students to ask better questions. Questions, not answers, are the key to action. Because of what I said before, if you ask a question and then you arrive at an answer, then you stop and you say, well, I have my answer. And you stop there. But if you ask a question, you're at the beginning. Now, where would you like to be, at the beginning or the end? Well, most people say, well, I want to be at the end. But does that make sense? Do we ever stay at the end? No, we get more information. We continue to live life. We gain more experience. We build more skill. We learn new things. We discover new things. We find out new things. And if we stop at the answer, we say, nope, I'm not listening anymore. I'm not doing anything anymore. I'm not learning anymore. I'm stopping right here. People that stop, they tend to get run over. They tend to get bypassed. They tend to not be as effective at using the gifts and opportunities that God has given them to carry out his mission in the world, to build the kingdom of God. But if you ask questions and you get into a question asking mindset, then you're constantly at the starting point and you're constantly looking forward. When you arrive at an answer, you say, that answer helped me. Now that I know that answer, it helps me to form and ask the next question. It's a question-based mindset, not an answers-based mindset. And you should avoid claiming answers, or put it another way, question assumed answers. Now, remember, refer to that first slide. Don't get nervous here about what I'm saying. I'm not asking people to do some theological stuff here, right? But, if we were honest with ourselves, we should think about this in terms of being humble before an awesome God. From my reading of the scripture, from my observations of real life, things get pretty bad when people think they know everything that God has said on a subject. I'm not claiming innocence here. I've been there too, and it's generally ended badly for me. I'm always nervous when somebody claims to have a final answer. That doesn't mean that I think there's no such thing as truth. That doesn't mean that I don't think that there's ways to know exactly what to do in a situation. It certainly doesn't mean that I don't think there's a right and a wrong, and often in situations there's a right answer and there's a wrong answer in terms of moral decisions and all those things. I just mean that every time somebody claims an answer as a final answer, that it sounds suspiciously to me like they're claiming something that only God's allowed to do, which is to have ultimate knowledge. Let me try this kind of strange sounding quote on you. I've actually got this from a speaker named Andy Andrews, and he says this a lot, and it's been very valuable to me. Just because something is true doesn't mean it's the truth. As I look at this slide, just because I spelled because wrong on my slide doesn't mean you should listen to me on this point. I have to fix that when I edit these slides later. But let's think about this, if I say God is holy and it's important that he wants you to be holy too, well, that's true. Is it the truth? Well, I don't know. It's certainly true. There's nothing about that statement that's not true, but it's not the complete truth. God is holy, and God also extends grace to us. Well, if I say God loves you and extends grace and forgiveness of sins, is that true? Yeah, certainly it's true. Is it the truth? Well, that's not the complete truth, because God is also holy and expects holiness of us. You see the situation, right? Just because something is true, it doesn't mean it's the truth. And I offer that not as like, oh, we can't know anything. I offer that to say that while we're alive and breathing and on this planet, we ought to be continually moving forward. By every time we understand some truth, something that's true, we should use that, build on that, stand on that, and strive forward to learn the truth. And that's what I mean by this whole question asking paradigm, that we should always assume that there's more to be learned, that there's more to be gained, there's more to be done. And so we should keep asking the questions so we keep pressing forward. And I'm going to suggest to you that doing so is the best way to help young people discover what they're called to do, where they're called to do it, how they're called to do it. And so let me put this in a model for you so you can understand how this works. So let me set this up for you. We use this, we call this our deciding forward paradigm, a framework, excuse me, our deciding forward model, a framework for decision. Now, I always am careful to say this is a model. And so I'm not claiming that this is a true thing that works in all situations, in all cases, and that I've somehow got some corner in reality and have created something that like this now answers everything. No. Please don't take it that way. What I mean by this is that there is a model that we have built here that I have found extremely useful in coaching and teaching young people to think about how to move forward making decisions without having to answer the big question, to have the big answer first. And so, in other words, if I have a student says, I don't know what I want to do with my life, typically what we'd say is oh, well, you just have to figure out what your purpose is. And when we purpose, we mean like everything you have to do in life and then go do it. So all you have to do to figure out what you want to do in life, kid, is to figure out what you're interested in and what your career should look like and what the trajectory of your life should look like and where you want to live and what you want to do and how you want to earn your living, how you're going to contribute to the world. And if you figure that all out by the time you're 17, then you can apply the right school and get the right major and get the right grades and get the right stuff and go to the right graduate school and get the right credentials and get the right job with the right firm so that you can then do the right thing for the rest of your life. Simple, isn't it? Go ahead, do it. And we wonder why kids are sort of freaked out and stressed out, right? Instead, I think we should say, relax. Of course, you have no idea what to do. Who would? How would you know what to do at 16 or 17 or 18? That's crazy. This is the part of life when you should be learning what it is that you want to do. And that's exciting. Let me give you a little model here to help you figure out how to do that. So here's what the model looks like. Curiosity, discover, and reflect. So let me sort of set this up for you, right? So I tell students, look, the first thing you need to do to ask a question is to ask a question. What are you curious about? Well, just get curious about something. And you can start this with a kid at any age. Doesn't matter how old your student. You can start as a 5-year-old. What are you curious about? Put that in the form of a question. What is it you want to learn about? You know, a 5-year-old might want to learn about trucks or being a firefighter. Great. Let's start there. You know, a 12-year-old might want to learn how to fish. Fantastic. Let's start there. And a 16-year-old might want to learn how to fix a car. Okay, great. Doesn't matter. What is it that you're curious about? And indulge that curiosity. That's the heart of homeschooling, right? The ability to be able to customize education to a student and say, ask a question and then figure out what you want to do with that. Be curious about something. So the curiosity stage, and I tell students, set a goal. I don't care what the goal is. It could be a big goal, it could be a little goal, it could be a medium goal. Little goals are better, in my opinion, because they tend to be achieved faster. And when people achieve goals, they tend to get addicted to continuing to achieve goals. And that's a pretty good byproduct. But whatever it is, set a goal. Get curious about something and then put that in the form of a question and then turn that question into a goal. All right, next, discover. And discover is as simple as deciding your next step. I'm curious about this. Okay, fine. What are you going to do about it? Well, I'm going to go to the library. I'm going to read a book about it. Fantastic. So decide your next step and do it. Go to the library, check out some books and read them. Now you've moved forward. You've attacked your curiosity, or you've indulged your curiosity. You've entered into a period of learning. Fantastic. I want to learn how to fish. All right. Or I'm curious about fishing. Okay. What's your next step? Well, I'm going to go fishing. Well, fantastic. Do you know anybody who knows how to go fishing? I don't. Well, maybe the first step is to go to church and find out who fishes and ask if you can go along with them. Or maybe, you're a family that fishes, so dad's going to take you fishing or whatever it is, right? Doesn't matter. Decide your next step and then do it. Move forward and start to answer whatever the question was posed by the curiosity. And finally, and this is the essential piece that makes all the difference, take time to reflect. Pause at certain points, maybe after each step of achieving something, and say, what did I learn and what's going on here? And then, and this is the key of the whole thing, we coach students and teach them, you can keep your goal or you can change your goal. In other words, quitting your original goal is not a problem here. And look, in life, there's sometimes goals that it's not good to quit. But in general, if we're talking about a goal that was derived from curiosity, internal curiosity, I'm curious about fishing. And I learned a little bit about fishing. And then, I learned enough, or I'm not as interested as I think I am. But fishing got me interested in boating, and boating got me interested in canoes. And all of a sudden I'm interested in canoes. Okay, well, what's your next goal? Well, I'm going to take a river trip. Fantastic. You take a river trip down the canoe. Now, does that make you more interested? You're going to take a bigger river trip, a multi-day river trip. You're going to go canoeing on a lake or something like that. Well, no, I'm not as interested in that. Now I'm interested in how one gets a canoe. I'm interested in boat building. Well, fantastic. Indulge that curiosity. And then you get into that curiosity and you discover you're interested in boat building. Well, then you move forward. What's your new goal? I'm going to build a canoe. All right. So now it's getting bigger and the kid builds a canoe. Well, I build a canoe. Am I still interested in this? Yes. He builds another canoe. Are you still interested in this? Yes. He builds a motorboat. Am I still interested in this? No. But boy, have I got some serious skills that'll make me a fantastic custom home builder, craftsman, boat builder, whatever it is, right? You see how the process works here. In other words, it's all about having curiosity. It's about moving forward with that curiosity, and then it's taking the time to reflect and figure out what that means and either continue to pursue that goal or change directions. So curiosity, discover, reflect, set a goal, decide what your next step is and execute that, move towards your goal, reflect at various points to know whether you should keep moving to your goal or whether you would change. And when you do that reflection process, ask some of these important questions. What did you learn? What did you like? What didn't you like? How does it change what you're doing next? How are you going to apply it to what you are doing next? Just some simple questions. But students who take the time to pursue curiosity, do something about it, and then think about what they have done, those are people who are actively discerning what it is they're gifted in, what it is the world needs, and how those gifts that God has given them, what the world needs, how those things interact. And then always take time for that curiosity check. Are you still curious about this? Yes? Go back to step one and repeat the process. What's the next step? Do that and go forward. Nope. Okay. Start at step one with a new goal and pursue that curiosity. When you do this a couple of times, you can start to add this question as well. Does this create value? In other words, is this the kind of thing that is viable as a career or as a something to do or something to earn money? And it's not that pursuing things that aren't value, don't have value. That's a fantastic way to learn. It's an important way to learn. And I think it fulfills something very important in what God has put us on earth to do, which is to think his thoughts after him and to be creative and pursue things. So not for a second am I saying that if it doesn't create value, that's a problem. But I am saying at some point, you have to start asking those questions. I'm singing and I'm interested in that. Great. Does that create value? Sometimes the answer is yes, I'm a really talented singer. Sometimes the answer is no, it creates value for me, but I'm not the kind of singer that's going to get paid to do that. I may sing in the local choir. I may sing at choir at church. I may sing in the chorus in our town. I might even perform in some musicals from time to time, but this is not going to be my full career choice. That's no problem. That's an enriching, important piece of your life and a way to bless others and to carry out some of the ministry that God has given you. But it's important to realize that that's not necessarily something you're going to do for a living. On the other hand, if you answer yes, we get to the last point here, which is discovering the base skill, figuring out how to test that skill and build on the skill. So let me explain this last point here before we wrap up pretty carefully. So remember, we start with this. The answers, don't start with an answers paradigm, start with a questions paradigm. Ask questions to move forward. And then gave you a bit of a model here on how to ask those questions: curiosity, discover, reflect. And then finally, let me just give you some base stuff that we teach all of our students, and I think it'll be really helpful for you. Look, in any company or team, could be a church team, could be a community team, sometimes even can be applied to a family, any kind of group that's trying to achieve a goal together, and certainly in business, there are these three pieces. There's a visionary. Typically, there's not many of them, and if there's too many visionaries with different visions, it's a problem. And the visionary is a person that lives in the future. That's always looking ahead and saying, I see this coming. I see that coming. This is what we should do next. I see this need. I see this thing. I understand the goal that we're trying to get to. And there's people who are, and so they're often leaders of companies and the heads of things and that kind of thing. Then that visionary stands on one of two disciplines. The first discipline is storytelling. In other words, storytelling is all about articulating to somebody else the vision and having them buy into it. A salesperson is a storyteller. A marketer is a storyteller. A teacher, in many ways, is a storyteller, right? The people that say, I understand where we're getting to and I understand where we are, and I want to connect those two things. I want to be able to teach that in a way that people understand the need and go between those two things. And then there's operations. They're the people that make the whole thing work. They see the vision and they see the storytellers get people in on the vision, and then they make the product work. They put the stuff together in the background. They run the Excel sheets. They build the stuff. They put it together. They make it all run. And again, a visionary leader comes out of one of these two backgrounds. I know people that have strengths in all these areas, typically not equally, but often in all of these. I know people that start out in the storytelling spectrum and end up in the operations spectrum. I've seen visionaries come from both the operations and the storytelling background. But here's the thing. Every company and every group has these elements. The more you can help your student, or if you're the student, the more you can understand which of these elements resonates with you, the more you can find your place in the world. Because let me repeat, every business and every team needs people in these positions. And if you know that you're good at one of these and you love doing those things, and then you can do that in a wide variety of different careers and fields, you're likely to be in the place where you're going to build the most skill, gain the most autonomy, get the most experience, and make the biggest difference, and consequently be really happy with what you're doing and feel you're living out your God-given gifts and talents in the world. Now, you can understand this more personally by saying, vision people on a personal level are the people that like to create, right? They like to sort of imagine something and make it happen. Operations people are the kind of people that like to coordinate. They like to put all the pieces together and make it work. And storytelling people are the people that like to connect. So if you're a student, think about it in those terms. Or if you are thinking about your child, is your child somebody who is creating often, or connecting, or coordinating? And look, all three of these can do the same, get to the same results. I use this example a lot. Let's say you have a little one-person craftsmanship situation. It could be a girl or guy doing anything, but for this situation, because we were talking about boats earlier, let's talk about somebody who runs a little boat building shop, right? If you run this shop all by yourself, you need to have all three of these things going for you. But a create person, a vision person that runs a one-person boat building shop, that person built a lot of different boats. They're always thinking about new boats. They're always getting better at it. They start with a base model, and then they change it and adapt it and create new models and design new ones and write new plans. And they probably end up making more money selling plans than they do actually selling boats, because they're always mentally ahead and living in the future, and they're improving on what they do. A connect storytelling person running that shop, they love what boats do for people. They build one boat, but they're really good at telling people, you need this boat. This boat will change your life. This boat will take you to places you never been before. This boat will let you see nature you hadn't been able to see before. This boat will give you exercise. This boat will give you satisfaction, whatever. For them, it's the people that are more important than the actual boat. The boat is a vehicle, literally, for them to be able to help people. So they're the storytelling connect type of person running that shop. The operations and a coordinate type person running that shop, that would be the kind of person who says, you know, we're going to build this boat. We're going to make a system for building this boat. By that system, we're going to make things easier. We're going to be able to use less materials more cheaply, buy it in bulk, make it more efficiently, mass produce these boats, and make a lot more money on them, because we're going to figure out how to make these boats the best way possible. Now, again, a person running a one-person shop, they have to have a little bit of all three of these elements. But you can see how the shop looks a little different and the mission's a little different based on which element is primary in the person that's doing it. When you're thinking about helping a student, or if you're a student figuring out how to answer big questions, it helps a lot to know where you are in this triangle. Are you a create and vision person? Are you a connect and storytelling person? Or are you a coordinate and operations type person? The more you can go through the deciding forward framework, pursue goals, have curiosity, decide what to do next, answer that curiosity, reflect on what it is, and every time look back at that and think, did I pursue that in a way that was a create vision way, or an operations coordinate way, or a storytelling connect way? The more you're able to do that, the more you'll discover about yourself and what your gifts are. The more you'll discover about how the world works, and the more you'll be prepared to answer the questions you need to answer in a way to allow you to ask questions that continue to move you forward. So let's review this really quickly. Start with questions, not answers. Don't get trapped in an answers framework. Instead, think about questions that move you forward. Think about the deciding forward framework. Curiosity, set a goal, discover, decide your next step and do it. Reflect, keep or change your goal. And get yourself located in the team and personal triangle. Are you a vision create person, a storytelling connect person, or an operations or coordinate person? Now look, here's the deal. If you do this, if you do that, that should be fun. Discovering how God made you and what you're designed to do, that should be a fun process, not a super scary, really difficult, high stress process. It should be a process of discovery. It should be a process of learning. It should be a process that helps you understand what it is that needs done in the world and what God's enabled you to do because of where God placed you. That's what I want you to know. Stop worrying, less stress. Instead, Focus on asking good questions, pursuing those questions, asking the answers, and moving forward. Let's just end this with a really quick example. Most of the time, people ask me these questions in terms of college. And they think about assuming the answers. I have to know what I want to do, so I know what major I have to do, so I know what college I go to, and I'll figure this out. What if you turn that around? What if you start with questions? Do I need to go to college? If I went to college, do I have to go to college the same as everybody else? What's it look like to go to college? What are the possibilities for me for college? And if you answer some of those questions and say, I don't know what I go to college for, don't go yet. If you answer that and say, I'm not set up to go to college without going into a huge amount of debt, do college differently. If you say, well, I'm not even sure what I need to know yet, well, figure out a way to do that first. And if that leads you to the point where you need to have to get a college degree, do it then. Because going to college to get a degree that you know you need because you've got enough experience to understand that is way different than going to college and getting a bunch of debt and you're still not sure what to do when you graduate. See, that latter way, that's a way to a lot of stress. The former way, that's a lot more fun. It's a lot more interesting. It's a lot more exciting. In my experience, it's a lot more accurate. So ask questions. Don't rely on assumed answers. Go through that question asking process in a way that should be fun and entertaining, a process of discovery, a journey where you find out what it is God has given you, the opportunities he's provided for you, the place he's put you in, the gifts he's built into you, and the opportunities you have to live that out in the world and make a difference. If you do that, I think you'll make better decisions. I think you'll make wiser decisions. And I think you'll have a lot more fun doing it and be a lot less stressed out in the process. Have fun.